At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Mr. Gecko, you're a huge inspiration to us all, but who was your muse?
My dear old Nan. She would tell me, always remember to be true to yourself and to use that fast and friendly claim support on the Geico app. I follow her advice to this day.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
This is Parenting Great Kids with Dr. Meg Meeker. Because great kids are raised, not born.
As we start, I know that you're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, this is terrible. What am I doing wrong? Don't think like that, because the truth of the matter is we have all done a lot of things wrong, and we've probably made all of the mistakes that are in here, but just don't worry about that. Move ahead and just do the best we can. So let's go to bad habit number 1, persistent yelling. Now, I bet that everybody listening out there has yelled at your kids. I have. I probably yelled at every one of them. But when we talk about yelling, think about this. Whether your kid is 2 or whether your kid is 18, nobody needs to be yelled at, period. And you don't like to be yelled at. Your husband, your wife, doesn't deserve to be yelled at. If you yelled at people in your workplace, you wouldn't last very long there. But why do we yell at our kids? If you think about say you have a 5-year-old kid right now, and you think about how exasperated you get with that kid, and he won't go to bed and he just keeps jumping on the bed at night. You're trying to put him to sleep and you just get so frustrated you yell. Well, no 5-year-old should be yelled at. So why do you yell? Why do we yell? We have a lot of stress. And the stress, unfortunately, comes out on our kids. It doesn't come out at school. It doesn't come out with our coworkers. It certainly doesn't come out with our boss. Sometimes it comes out with our spouse, but it really should never come out with our kids. But the kids are the easiest to yell at. And that's why we end up yelling at our kids, because it's a stress outlet. So in order to stop yelling at our kids, we've got to say, where am I stressed? How am I stressed? What is stressing me out? How can I resolve my stress? Because the more you can deal with your stress, the less likely you are to yell at your kids. Because nobody wants to yell at their kids. It's just your stress. Yelling is your issue, not theirs. They should be able to jump on the bed all they want and never go to bed at night and drive you crazy. And you should be able to discipline, but not yell at them. The other thing that can happen is if you have underlying anger. Now, a lot of us have underlying anger towards our spouse. Maybe we have underlying anger toward a parent, a grandparent, somebody, a boss. And what we do is, if we don't process that anger well, in a healthy way, talk it through, figure it out, deal with it, resolve it, guess what? We yell at our kids. And so really what I'm talking about, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about here, is that we all have this angst underneath, and this energy and this anger and this frustration. Deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, your kids will wear it. Sometimes I tell parents in my practice who are or kids in my practice who are feeling bullied at school, or someone's being mean to them. I said, imagine that you have a raincoat on. This is a horrible image, but imagine you have a raincoat on and someone throws up on you. Okay, wipe it off, wash it off. Well, when you yell at your kids, you're spilling all that stuff onto your kids. And it hurts. It makes kids feel that you don't value them. It makes them feel ashamed. It causes them to pull away from you. Whenever somebody yells at you, you feel defensive. You feel like, what did I do wrong? I must be stupid. I'm making a mistake. I'm upsetting people. And you immediately think of, why are you at fault? Well, think about that. That happens to you as an adult. Think about yourself as a child. If you are 5 or you're 10 and this gargantuan person who's bigger than you and has a louder voice than you, who is smarter than you, who you need in order to survive, starts yelling at you, you feel terrified. This person doesn't like me. This person is ashamed of me. This person doesn't want me. And they don't love me. And my response to that is to just pull away and say, okay, you don't love me. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to go away. Something is wrong with me. Because in a child's mind, whenever you get angry with them or something happens around them that's wrong, that's not right, they blame themselves. Everybody else is right and they are wrong because they're egocentric people. So whether you so even if you were angry with your kid, okay, you told your kid, go do your homework. And when you're done with your homework, I want you to get ready for bed. I'll be up in an hour or so. And you go up there and the kid hasn't even started their homework and you are ripping mad. And so you let in to your kid, okay? You have a right to be angry because they didn't do what you said. However, when you yell at them for doing something that they should have done, they feel that they're not only wrong, but that they made you angry. They're ashamed on a deep level. So when your kid feels that you're angry with them, then they're not just wrong, they're bad. When you yell at your kid, they feel they're bad. And if they feel they're bad in your eyes, guess what? They're bad to everybody else because you're the one who's supposed to love them. You're the one who's supposed to think they're okay. So if you don't think they're okay, they're not okay. So that's what yelling and stress does to our kids. It's caused by our own stress. It's caused by unresolved anger or poor dealing with our stress. Or, maybe we're really angry at somebody else, but we're projecting that anger onto a kid. How many times have you come home or how many times have you had a fight with your spouse and you didn't resolve it and you just walked out of the room? You didn't yell at each other. You walked out of the room. You're still fuming mad. You see your kid an hour later. They do something that makes you mad. What do? You yell at them. You're not yelling at them. You're yelling at your spouse or you're yelling at yourself because you have so much stress. You're never yelling at your child. You're yelling because of something else. Can you be mad at your child and discipline there and say, hey, wait a minute. I told you to start your homework 2 hours ago. What's the deal? What's happening? Now I need to discipline you. And this is what's going to happen. Very different from yelling at your kid. So the next time you hear yourself yelling at one of your kids, stop and ask yourself, who am I really yelling at? Because it's not my kids. 2, frequent criticism. Criticizing our child. Now, a lot of times we criticize our kids and we don't really know we're doing it. Maybe, some kids are more sensitive than other kids. You look funny at one kid and they feel that you're criticizing them. You think they're ugly, they're stupid. You could say that to another one of your kids' faces, and it would just roll right off. Every child has a very different sensitivity level, but think about this. Whenever you feel like you might be criticizing your child, you're criticizing them in their eyes. They're very sensitive. Even the most insensitive child is exquisitely sensitive to criticism that you give them. So this includes name calling. Sometimes parents will call their kids funny names that they think are cute. They're sarcastic. You have, I just love your love handles. Or, your tummy that sticks out is just so cute. You don't say that to a 13-year-old girl. You may think it's cute and you may think she's lovely and wonderful. But when she hears you sort of saying something in jest, she's going to take it the wrong way. Don't name call. Don't call your kids names and don't criticize them. Never put them down. I just can't believe that you did that. Why aren't you like your sister? You know what? If you would just study harder, you'd get better grades, or maybe you just don't have it in you to get really good grades. Don't do it. Why do we criticize? Why do we criticize our kids? Do they do things that are worthy of criticism? Probably. We all do, but it doesn't mean you need to criticize them. We criticize them because we've been criticized. Maybe we were criticized at a very tender age by our parents and we never got over it. Maybe we criticize them because we're very insecure. Maybe we want them to be better at something than we were. And if they're not getting there, we criticize them because they're not meeting the mark. I just talked to a kid recently who never feels, even as a young adult, that she ever got her parents' approval because she was just always falling short of fill in the blank. Always falling short of being kind enough, getting good enough grades, looking pretty enough, wearing the right clothes, you name it. We criticize because we've been criticized. We criticize because we're insecure. And same thing with teasing. Never, ever, ever tease your kids. Kids hate to be teased. We may think it's funny, or some people may think it's funny, but in teasing, there's always an underlying bite to it. So don't tease your kids. Well, I was just having fun with you. No, you're not. You're being cruel to your kid. How does criticizing our kids, even in a very light, innocuous manner, hurt our kids? Well, it makes them feel insecure. Because if they feel that they're not doing well enough in your eyes, they feel like they're not good enough and they never will be good enough. Remember, you're talking to egocentric little people who need your approval. And so even if you say something very innocuous like, you know what, I don't think that you should eat that piece of cake tonight because sugar's not good for you. Here's what your 13-year-old daughter says. My mom thinks I'm fat. I shouldn't eat cake. Well, maybe you really just meant she shouldn't eat it because it's not good for her, but that's not what she heard. So many times in the things that you say, your child may hear it as a criticism. So try to think as they think, because criticism makes them insecure. It can set them up for eating disorders, behavior problems. They can feel fat, anxious, stupid, obnoxious. And you are your kid's buffer to the world. They get plenty of criticism at school by being bullied, by teachers, you name it. They feel criticism everywhere they go. So your job is to not only not criticize them, but to buffer them from the world, to keep them feeling good about who they are. 3, very common, never saying you're sorry. I would say this is one of the hardest things for parents to do, is to go to their kid and say, you know what, I really messed up. I yelled at you. I didn't mean to yell at you. Yelling at you was wrong. I'm sorry. A lot of prideful parents, and I see this, I'm not trying to pick on dads here, but I often see this in fathers who feel that they're always right. They're wiser, which they're wiser than their kids, of course, but they have a hard time admitting mistakes, not just in general, but to their kids, because they don't want to look weak to their kids. They don't want to give their kids any leverage to use against them and say, see, you're a bad dad. And that's not what you're doing. But admitting fault is hard for anybody. It's hard for people who are proud. But it's particularly hard for parents to do with children, because we feel that we're admitting that we're not good enough to our kids. It's just kind of loaded. It's easier to apologize almost to anybody. It's easier. Apologizing to almost anybody is easier than apologizing to your kids, but it shouldn't be, because you'll never meet a more forgiving person in your life than your child. Because your child needs you. Your spouse, your friends, your boss, they don't need you. Your child needs you. So they want to forgive you. So there are a lot of reasons why we don't say, I'm sorry. We are afraid that it's going to cause our kids to look down on us. If anything, not saying we're sorry when we've really messed up. And make no mistake, kids know when we're wrong. They know when you've messed up. And so you can't really hide anything from them. So what does not saying we're sorry to our kids do to them? Well, it makes them resent us. Because as I said, if you yell at them or swear at them or call them a name or put them down or whatever, in their mind, in their heart, they know you're wrong. They know it's wrong to do what you did to them. They're little people, but they're smart and they have intuition and they have instinct, and their instincts, like yours, are often right. So it makes kids resent their parents. It makes them blame themselves. Well, since my dad yelled at me and he didn't say he was sorry and he's right, I must have done something really, really bad that caused him to yell at me. And that's very unhealthy thinking. But again, they take responsibility for your bad behavior when you don't say you're sorry. They take responsibility for your bad behavior when it's really not their responsibility because you don't say you're sorry. And it makes your kids incredibly insecure. It makes them feel like they're always wrong. They're always bad. They're doing things that they're doing things that in your eyes are always bad. So say you're sorry to your kids. Let's say you yell at them because they did something really bad. You apologize for yelling, but that doesn't get them off the hook for doing something bad. Okay, saying you're sorry doesn't tell them, okay, I'm sorry, what you did was right, it's okay, I overreacted. No, I overreacted, but what you did was wrong. So I need to learn how to handle it differently when you do something wrong. 4, withholding affection, the refrigerator mode that many of us get into when we're mad. We punish people by isolating. We punish people by not talking to them, by just leaving, by checking out, by not paying attention, by turning on the television when the kid wants to say something or do something. No, I'm mad at you. You're not going to get my affection. Forget it. Leave. We do to them what often was done to us. And many times we withhold affection from our kids because that's what we learn to do. That's how we cope with stress. That's how we cope with being upset with another person, is rather than reach out to that other person and navigate our way through the hurt, we say, nope, that's it. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going to withhold my affection. You know, you can do that to a friend to cut a friend off, but you can't do it with your children. Because again, children need you. Children see your affection very differently than anyone else sees your affection. You know, you can withhold it from your husband or your wife, and they can deal with it in a different way because it's an adult to adult relationship interaction. You can't do it with your kids because it makes them feel unworthy and it leaves them starved for affection. And let me tell you, friends, when you have a 13-year-old or a 16-year-old kid starved for affection, they end up in bad places, particularly teenage girls. And I see it all the time because when you withhold affection from them for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. They feel that they're not worth your attention. They're not worthy to have you touch them and hold them and love on them. And if they're not worthy of your affection, but they need affection because it's a fundamental physical need, they'll go anywhere they can to find it. And that's just, they'll get in a very bad vicious cycle. They don't feel they're worthy of affection, so they go try to find affection. They find it in places that are not healthy for them. They walk away from that feeling even worse about themselves. But they still know they need affection, so they go find it another place. Never, ever, ever withhold affection from your children. You should be able to be ripping mad at them. You should be able to have had a horrible day at work and feel stressed out. You should be able to be going through a divorce or grieving the death of somebody and still be affectionate to your children. It's not their fault what's going on around you. They never do anything that's worth you cutting off your affection from them. But you know what? Because they're an easy target, we yell, we withhold affection, we criticize, we do all these things, and it makes us miserable at the end of the day. But most importantly, them. 5, never really paying attention. Now, this is really tough in this day and age with technology and phones and screens and televisions and texts and Instagram and social media. It's really hard to pay attention to anything. It's hard for kids to pay attention at school if they have a phone there, which unfortunately many kids do. But you can fail to pay attention to a lot of things. But when you fail to pay attention to your child, it makes them feel invisible. And there's nothing more devastating to a child than feeling invisible to their parents. It makes them feel that you don't value them. You walk right by them. You don't see them. How many times have you been in the same room with your kid and they're saying something to you and you're texting or you're looking something up or you're scrolling? In that moment, they're invisible. And kids they can't thrive when they feel invisible. We do it because we're being trained to not focus on things. We are allowing phones and things to come into our lives that just grab our attention. And let's face it, they're addictive. I get addictive. We all get addicted to our screens and looking at things. So we need to understand we get addicted and fight to not do it because, yeah, it's bad for us, but it's really bad for our kids. 6, saying you accept your child, but you really don't. Now, this is a tough one to talk about. But what I've seen happen is that often kids will not feel accepted by a parent. They know they're not accepted. And parents will say, yes, but I accept you. Yes, but I love you. Here's one of the lines. I love you, but I don't like you. Well, to a kid, that means you don't love me or like me. That's what they hear. But kids often pick up on not feeling accepted and they always know it. And sometimes kids pick up on not feeling accepted when you think you really are accepting your kids. For instance, let's say you have a firstborn child. She's very much like you are, and she hits 4 or 5, and you remember when you were 4 or 5, and you didn't like yourself very much at 4 or 5 because something was going on in your life. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to transfer those feelings onto your 4 or 5-year-old daughter because subconsciously she is you, and you didn't like your little self. And so now you don't like her. You try to love and accept her, but you don't know why it's not happening because you're really trying to accept something other than who she is. Another issue that can come up with as well is when your kids remind you of somebody else that you disliked or that you hated. Maybe, you have a bad relationship with your husband and your son reminds you of your husband. You can say all day long, I accept you. But if you're conveying to him that you don't like the person that he is, guess what? In his mind, he's not accepted. So many of us do it because we never were unconditionally loved. Now, loving somebody unconditionally, it's extremely hard. It's very, very hard to do. But many of us never really felt completely accepted or loved by our parents. Maybe we were a disappointment to our parents. And maybe they told us that. Maybe our parents never really liked the person that we are or were. Now, I see this not uncommonly, that a parent has a vision for how they want their child to be when they're 13, 15, 18, and the child isn't that person, and they're very disappointed in that child. As a matter of fact, they really don't like that kid, but they don't accept that they're having negative feelings towards their kids, so they're trying to pretend over and over and over, but I accept you, but I love you, but I accept you, but I love you. But if you really don't accept that kid in your heart, kid sees right through that. Okay, so if you are having those ugly feelings towards your kid or disappointment with your kid, deal with it. As a pediatrician, I've had so many parents tell me they want to connect with their kids, but just don't know how to start. And that's exactly why I love what FamGabs is doing. FamGabs is a 70-card deck of deep, open-ended questions created by a child therapist with over 16 years of experience working with families. These cards are designed to do more than just start conversations. They help build real connection. I've used them with my grandkids, and I'm always amazed at what comes up. One of the questions sparked a beautiful conversation about friendship, something I never would have gotten by just asking, "How was your day?" The deck even includes bonus questions for parents to help us grow in how we talk with our kids. If you've ever felt stuck in the loop of one-word answers, FamGabs can help your family grow closer in a way that feels natural and fun. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code DrMegPod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FamGabs on Amazon. Use promo code DrMegPod and get 10% off your order. Every child is different. Some love reading, others thrive with hands-on projects, and some just need a little more space to learn at their own pace. That's why I'm excited to share about K-12, a flexible, tuition-free online public school option for families. K-12 powered schools serve students from kindergarten through 12th grade with accredited interactive learning. Their curriculum adapts to your child's learning style and pace, and all their teachers are state certified and trained in virtual education. And it's not just sitting at a screen all day. K-12 blends interactive lessons, tech, hands-on learning, and even offers field trips, extracurriculars, and social activities. You really can have flexibility and community all in one place. It's about giving your child the tools they need to succeed, not just in school, but in life. And with over 3 million families already enrolled, you're in great company. Join the more than 3 million families who have chosen K-12 and empower your student to reach their full potential now. Go to k12.com/drmeg today to find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you and enroll now. That's the letter K, the number 12.com/drmeg. K12.com/drmeg. Why are you disappointed? It's not your kid's fault. Why is your child always falling short? Why does he need to be the person that you thought he was going to be? He doesn't. That's your issue, not his issue. You should be able to accept who your kid is. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. But you have to be able to love them in the midst of this. This is really hard in this day and age of transgender, and that's a whole different topic. But learning to navigate that with your kids when you're extremely upset and disappointed with what's going on in your kid's life, which, by the way, if it's going on, often doesn't have to do with gender identity, something much deeper going on. But that's where you can get into that pull and tug with your kids over what you don't like in them and learning to accept the person for who they are. So what does not accepting our kids do to them? It causes them to not trust us. It makes them wonder, well, if you don't accept me, do you really love me? And if you don't really love me, then what is my life worth? Because to a child, if mom and dad aren't going to love him or her, why live? Why be alive if the people who brought you into the world don't want you? And that's a deep, deep struggle for a lot of kids, but it basically makes your child feel unloved if if you say you accept your child, but you really don't. Not spending enough time with your kids. Why we do it? Because we have a lot of messed up priorities. A lot of parents would much prefer being out doing something at work or with their friends or anything than they would being with their kids. Our kids need more of our presence. They need more of our time. And when we're not giving our kids enough time, they feel abandoned. It makes them feel that they're not a priority, that everything else is a priority, but they aren't. And it leaves emotional scars for every child if we're refusing to spend enough time with our kids. And I would like to answer some kind of questions. If anybody has questions here, yes, let me pop into the chats. Okay, great. My daughter tried saying she was of different gender, but she even admits she felt she needed to choose something to be. I think that's a great comment. When kids go and say, I need to be a different gender, it really isn't about the gender. Something is going on inside of them. There's a lot of turmoil, often depression, often anxiety, a lot of confusion. And they believe that the answer to all of that is just to change who they are. And they don't necessarily want to change who they are for themselves. They want to do it for other people because they believe this is the answer. Changing your gender has become, unfortunately, the answer for many kids in dealing with very tough issues. And I just warn you with that. I've had kids that have gone through or wanting to go through gender transition. And I strongly believe that children should never be given hormones or surgery. They need to have their pain dealt with. But in the kids that I do see, and I've seen them go through it, I ask them periodically, how's your depression doing? It's terrible. Late 6 months, how's your depression doing? The depression doesn't go away. The problems don't go away. They just become more complicated. Okay. Another issue that comes up fairly frequently is mothers saying that they're upset because their husbands or the father of the kids yells at the kids. What can she do about it? Well, this is a tough one because you're fundamentally looking at another person and trying to figure out how to change their behavior. But you want to change their behavior around a behavior that's very, very sensitive and that they're going to be very defensive about. And here's what I recommend you do. First of all, don't just blurt it out. Don't just blurt out something like, you know what? You got to stop yelling at you don't want to yell at your husband and say, stop yelling at our kids. It's driving me crazy. It's harmful to them. You're wrecking our kids. They'll never grow up to be anybody. You just got to knock it off. That's not going to work. So here's what you do. And it takes a lot of self-control. You approach your spouse and you say to him, you know, I'm really concerned that you seem to be upset a lot and you're angry a lot. Don't even talk about the kids first. You show empathy towards him regarding his anger issue. You point out to him that anger is hurting him and you're concerned for him living with the anger. And then you ask questions. Do you think I'm right? Do you think you have an anger issue? Where do you think your anger is coming from? Don't put him on the defensive. And so by keeping him off of the defensive, then he'll start to talk with you. And if you can start to get him to deal with his anger in a healthy way, the yelling at your kids may go away. But if it doesn't, then down the road, you can say, you know, your anger is hurtful. It's hurtful to me. It's hurtful to kids. And we really need you back. We need you as a healthy person. I need you as a really healthy husband. And the kids need the best of you, not the worst of you. So husbands yelling at their dads yelling at their kids is not that uncommon. So we moms need to figure out a way to help them, because then we help our kids. And if it's the reverse, if it's the wife who's yelling at the kids and you're a dad listening, it's the exact same thing. My wife and I are expecting our second child. It's a little girl any moment. We have a 4-year-old, and as a father, how do I make sure that our first child doesn't feel less loved when our time together is about to get cut in half. You know, what a tender heart you have. First of all, you'll have no problem with it. You know, when we go to have our second child, we think, how can I ever love a child as much as I love my first child? And then that child's born, you realize, oh, I can. My heart has enough love for all of them. And I don't love my second child any less than I love my first child. So what I'm saying is a lot of what you freighted up is not going to happen. Okay. Your second child will feel very much loved because that's your instinct, is to love your child the same. Now, a couple things to think about. Your older child will be jealous when baby comes home because your 4-year-old daughter is used to having all your time and attention. So what you're going to need to do after the baby's born, and you probably can't do it the first month or two the baby's born because it's exhausting, take her out and have some special alone time with her and say, and talk to her about being a sister, and talk to her about, how special she is, and talk to her about what it was like when you brought her home from the hospital. So your daughter is going to, you just need to give her attention in a little different way. And don't freak out if she wants to kick the baby or, harm the baby. It's a jealousy issue. So recognize it, take some special alone time with her, and use it as a time to sort of love on her a lot. But here's what you'll find happen over time, years. Yes, your older daughter will get less of your time and attention than she did when she was an only child, but she gets a great blessing of having a sibling. And the good that comes from having a sibling is remarkable. And in many ways, it offsets the time that she lost in being with you. So it really is a win-win. So I wouldn't worry about it. Okay. I don't feel that I intentionally withhold affection from my kids, but I recognize that I do when they have upset me, like behavior, chores. I've tried to handle the situation without yelling. Good. It seems to end up with me yelling and then becoming distant. I hate it. Good for you that you're accepting it, you're facing it, and you wrote it down. You wrote it down. You're yelling at your kids and you're withholding affection. Why are you withholding affection? Maybe that's what you learned. Maybe that's how you deal with your frustration and your anger, is to pull away and to isolate. So what you need to learn to do is learn how to deal with your frustration and anger at other things differently first. Because your kids are always going to make you mad. Your kids are always going to upset you and push your buttons. But you need to realize that you can choose how you're going to respond to them. Okay? They're just kids. And they're just not doing their chores. And, but it's not your fault. A lot of times when our kids upset us, we take it very, very personally. Like if I were a better mother, then you would have done your chores. You know what? If I were a mother like my friend whose kids never yell at her, you wouldn't yell at me. So I'm a really bad mother. It gets really kind of messy, but I'll bet you're withholding your affection from them because you're not really mad at them. A, that's how you handle your anger. That's not healthy for you. Or B, you're really mad at something else other than them, and that's tough for you to sort of uncover. So I think the most important thing is dig deep and figure out why you handle your frustration, anger by withdrawing or by yelling. And teach yourself how to handle it in a healthier way. And if you need a therapist to help you do it, do it. Because a lot of why you're withholding your with affection from your kids probably doesn't have to do with them. It's probably something that started a long time ago. Is it a trained reaction? If you were a kid and your parents got mad at you and you tried to say something, did they yell at you harder so you just withdrew? Or maybe you learned to do it because that's what happens in your marriage, because you're never going to win an argument, so you just shut down and you go away. You probably learned how to withhold affection much earlier than when you had your kids. So figure out where that came from and how to resolve it, and you'll be fine. Give up the blame game. You know what? You're doing the best you can do. We're all doing the best we can do. How do I know that? You're here. You're working on it. You recognize that you need some help and some support and some guidance, because we all do. You know what? Bad mothers don't do that. Bad mothers think they're good mothers, and the good mothers think they're bad mothers. And so that's really, really important. But to let yourself off your hook, recognize where you're making mistakes, shake it off, and move on, because we're going to make mistakes, with everybody from here until the day we die. And so we've got to just give ourselves grace, but accept that it's a learning process. No one taught us how to parent. We learn it as we go, and usually we learn it through our mistakes, and we learn what not to do. So you got to give that up. The anger towards yourself, you got to let go of. You have to let go of that, because you know what? You're a mom. You're doing a good job. You're working hard. And that's what your kids really need. And we just continue to do it. Or a sister or a brother's behavior, because you're not them, and your kids aren't their kids. I have honestly seen some amazingly good kids, like kids whose parents have been in jail. Good kids grow up, even if they had parents who'd been in jail, who've really made a lot of bad decisions. And I've seen some pretty snarky kids grow up with parents who are amazing parents. Amazing. A friend of mine, great parent, stay-at-home mom, really attentive dad. Kid grows up, goes off the rails, and ends up living homeless. And, talk about trying to take things personally. It was very hard for them. But lo and behold, the kid went through his phase, 4 or 5 or 6 years, came around very, very close with his parents for, decades since then. So here's the bottom line. Every time your child does something stupid, or something that you don't like, or that you disagree with, or that you really don't like, don't take it personally. They're not doing it, A, because you made a mistake, or B, because they're just trying to bug you. Sometimes they're just doing it. And, sometimes I've told parents this, and I don't know if it'll be helpful, but one of the things, if you're having a hard time dealing with one of your kids, and you just feel like you're going to lose it all the time, often in a family, say you have 3 kids, one of those kids is going to be the one that's constantly going to be in your face, challenging you. Well, those are the kids that are easy to lose it on. But here's what you do. When you talk to that child and you're really starting to get wound up because they're driving you crazy, pretend that child is your friend's child, not yours. In other words, emotionally distance yourself from the child and talk to him as though he was your friend's kid, not like he's your kid. What would you say to your friend's kid to sort of emotionally distance yourself? Because then you can be more rational. Because the tangles that we get in with our kids usually are very irrational, and they're irrational because they're steeped in deep emotion, not just in something we think we should be doing. We are pretty much out of time. I also wanted to encourage you. We have a community or parenting portal that I run on my website, meekerparenting.com, where I come in and answer questions. So if you leave the webinar and you feel like you had a burning question that you didn't ask, or you think of something tomorrow in a month, or you have a question about how to deal with a situation, this parenting thing is hard. Grandparenting is hard. And I feel privileged to be able to sort of lead discussions like this, not because I did it right. I know how it's to be done. And because I've watched a lot of good parents, and I've learned through a lot of mistakes that I've made. And, we got to learn from our mistakes and change. And that's, we get second and third and fourth chances all the time with our kids. So we've got to take advantage of that. And life is so much richer and so much better when we just kind of face our messy selves and our messy selves as parents. Don't sit there and say, oh, I'm a terrible, terrible person. Stop. Use your mistakes in a healthy way, in a creative way, in a way that's going to really bless our kids and grow ourselves as parents and grow our relationships with our kids so much deeper. And we can do it. And I know one thing, you are here. And that makes you a good parent. That makes you a good enough parent. Do you need improvement? Of course. Have you made some of these bad mistakes and decisions? Of course. But now you know, and now you know what to work on. And now I know what to work on, even, as a mother and a grandmother. I would be so honored for you to join my community. You have a barcode right there. Snap the barcode. It'll take you to the Ask Dr. Meg community. And like I said, it's a parent portal. I have portals on our website at my practice where parents can come in and ask questions or chat with me. You're going to get a lot of support there. You're going to get a lot of encouragement. I never, ever, ever put parents down because I've been a parent and I know how hard it is. I've made mistakes and, and the beauty, I guess, of getting older and your kids getting older is if you think you haven't made mistakes, not to worry. When your kids hit their 20s, they'll give you the list of mistakes that you've made. And you just kind of work them through. And then I remind them that they're going to get the list from their kids one day when they're in their 20s. This parenting thing is a lot of fun. It's a lot of heartache, but it's so good. It's so good. And we all need help. So please let me help you. Meeker, parenting.com. Join the Ask Dr. Meg community today. And I promise it's cheap. You won't regret it. Get your friends to come in, ask questions. No question is off limits. No question's too embarrassing. You may be embarrassed. I'm never embarrassed because I've talked about it all. And I would love to help you answer any tough question that you have. So anyway, I guess I'll sign off. I hope you have a wonderful night. Don't feel guilty. Shake it off. Just go forward being the best parent that you can be. And to know that in your kids' eyes, that's all they want. They just want to know you're trying to be the best parent you can. And any one of you can give that to your kids.